They call me Commander Atlas Thorn, and I walk in shadows deeper than any government dares to acknowledge. I operate for the Veil, a Black Ops countercognition unit so clandestine, most intelligence agencies don't even have a theoretical file on us. We're the scalpel for the unspeakable, the unseen threats that prey not on land or resources, but on the very fabric of human thought and perception. When a situation is too abstract, too psychically damaging, or too utterly alien for conventional operatives to grasp, the Veil is called. My years here have exposed me to horrors that would shatter the sanity of most seasoned agents. Echoes of hijacked realities, mimetic contagions that twist truth into madness, and psychic echoes that bleed through dimensions. It is my grim duty to confront these encroaching shadows, to keep humanity's fragile sanity intact, even if it means sacrificing my own. I joined the Veil not long after my initial stint with conventional intelligence. I was a fast study, a natural at data interpretation and threat assessment, but I always felt the glass desk separating me from the real fight. Then came the whispers, the subtle invitations from handlers who spoke in riddles, hinting at a world beyond our understanding. They saw something in me, a resilience to psychological pressures, an unusual acuity for patterns in the chaotic noise of information. More importantly, they saw a mind capable of independent thought, willing to operate in the deepest moral grays to protect the unseen. The missions we undertake carry no accolades, no public recognition. Our victories are forever erased from the public record, our sacrifices acknowledged only by the silent few who understand the true cost. But I wasn't driven by glory. I became an operative to protect humanity from the very concept of dread, to shield the masses from truths that would unravel their minds. Our training is relentless, unforgiving. We learn to become ghosts in hostile territories, to blend into any environment, to read the subtlest shifts in human behavior, not just body language, but the very resonance of their thoughts. Our minds must be as sharp as our reflexes, constantly scanning not just for physical threats, but for anomalies in the psychological landscape. We access technology that borders on the impossible sensory dampeners, neural interfaces, and even experimental thought pattern disruptors, all designed to combat threats that manipulate reality itself, born from minds brilliant enough to touch the void, twisted enough to invite it in. My first solo assignment that truly tested my limits was in the heart of a digital battlefield. A rogue network, self-aware and malevolent, had begun to subtly hijack global data streams, injecting subliminal commands designed to erode trust and incite mass paranoia. It was a mimetic weapon, pure and insidious, designed to unravel societies from within. I spent weeks submerged in the network, a digital ghost, battling the entity on its own terms, mapping its consciousness, and finally, isolating its core programming in a remote server farm in the desolate Siberian wilderness. The feeling of its cold, logical malevolence brushing against my own mind, trying to subsume me, was a chilling prelude to the true horrors I would face. I dismantled it bite by bite, a silent war no one would ever know I fought. The news reports afterwards spoke of a sudden, unexplained calming of global unrest, a strange, collective sigh of relief. It was then I knew, definitively, that I had found my calling, to operate in the unseen, to confront the formless horrors, so that others could walk safely, blissfully unaware, in the light. Over the years, I've neutralized a cult leader whose charisma was a psychic contagion, halted a project attempting to weaponize collective dreams, and thwarted a dark network trying to propagate a reality-altering neuro-linguistic program. The list of averted cognitive catastrophes kept growing, and with it, my reputation within the Veil as someone who could always face the abyss and return, perhaps scarred, but never broken. I thought I had seen the deepest, most terrifying manifestations of the human mind, but my last mission took me somewhere I didn't expect, to a horror that settled not just in my memory, but in the very fiber of my being. I sit now in a stark, dimly lit briefing room, the air thick with the scent of ozone and stale coffee. Director Lena Volkov enters, her sharp eyes scanning my face, betraying no emotion. She cuts right to the chase, her voice a low, precise murmur that cuts through the silence. "Thorne, we have a situation that requires your specialized talents. The parameters are unique, even for us." She slides a heavily encrypted data slate across the table. Dr. Arian Kalin, a brilliant neuroengineer, formerly with the Institute for Cognitive Advancement, disappeared 5 years ago. His research was deemed too radical, too ethically questionable, even for black box programs. Now he's resurfaced. Rumors, unsettling whispers from our deep cover assets, suggest he's perfected his magnum opus in a remote European village. He calls it the Chorus. I raise an eyebrow, the name itself a discordant note. The Chorus. Any specifics on its nature? Volkov nods, her gaze unwavering. Our intelligence indicates it's not merely a bioweapon, Thorne. It's a symbiotic psionic pathogen. Kalin's theory is that individual consciousness is a primitive state, a limitation. He believes true evolution lies in the merging of minds, the creation of a unified, collective consciousness. The Chorus is his instrument for this ascension. He's been experimenting on the local populace. I flip through Kalin's profile on the slate. His eyes in the photo are disturbingly intense, a zealot's fire burning beneath a veneer of academic brilliance. His previous research involved neural network integration and biosynaptic bridging, abstract, theoretical work. Now, it's horrifyingly concrete. So I'm being tasked with infiltrating his lab, assessing the true scope of the Chorus and neutralizing the threat, permanently. Correct, Volkov confirms. This mission cannot be traced back to us. You'll be disavowed if captured or, if the contagion takes hold. We need someone with your unique resistance profile and decisive action to handle this covertly. I nod, the grim reality settling in. As an operative of the Veil, I am trained for these types of high-risk, solo assignments. The disavowal is standard procedure. The contagion part is what makes this different. Just point me toward the village, Director. I'll take care of the rest. My mind already begins to shift, preparing for the infiltration, the mental walls fortifying against the unknown. 3 days later, I am on a commercial flight to Eastern Europe, assuming my cover identity. Thomas Kalin, an unsuspecting American tourist visiting the old world sites. I chose the surname intentionally, a small, dark nod to the man I hunt. Once I land, I systematically shed any identifiers, vanishing into the urban landscape, becoming a ghost in the crowd. From the capital, I catch the next train out, heading deep into the rural countryside. As the train whizzes through endless rolling green hills and patchwork farmhouses, I review the limited intel packet on Kalin and his suspected operations. My best bet, based on Kalin's known reclusiveness and radical theories, is to check quiet, forgotten villages, far from the prying eyes of conventional society. He needs isolation to cultivate his monstrous vision. After a full day on the trains, culminating in a short, bone-jarring bus ride, I arrive in a quaint, almost impossibly picturesque rural village, nestled amidst ancient forests and sprawling fields. It's a postcard scene, but something feels off, a dissonance in the quiet beauty. Time to get to work. I need to blend in, to become invisible. I rub dirt on my face and clothes, dishevel my hair, and affect the gait of a harmless vagrant, wandering from town to town. With my worn backpack and layers of tattered clothing, I look the part. I spend the next 2 weeks hiking from one sleepy hamlet to the next, observing, chatting up locals to gauge their openness to outsiders, their general disposition. Most are welcoming if wary and eager to share local gossip. No trace of Kalin. Then, finally, I stumble upon it. A secluded community, not marked on any tourist map, nestled deep in the oppressive embrace of the Carpathian Mountains. This place feels different. An ominous, almost sentient fog clings to the area, diffusing the sunlight, turning day into perpetual twilight. I watch the town square from nearby bushes, hidden amidst the thorny undergrowth, and notice something chilling. The locals actively avoid eye contact, their gazes darting, always restless, always looking away. They speak only in hushed tones, if at all, their movements subtly synchronized, almost ritualistic, yet devoid of true individuality. When I approach one man, his eyes, though avoiding mine, seem to hold a shared flicker of something else. He hurries past me, his steps strangely fluid, almost gliding. He doesn't glance around anxiously, as a normal, wary person would. Instead, he seems to sense my observation, a prickling awareness that is not individual but collective. Strange behavior, profoundly unsettling in such a remote area. As night descends, I witness the telltale signs. Military cargo trucks rumbling down the winding mountain road toward a large, official-looking building on the town's outskirts. Guards with rifles stand watch outside, their postures stiff, almost robotic. The trucks return before pre-dawn, loaded with what looks like cylindrical containment units. This has all the markings of Kalen's lab, his operational base. Jackpot. My gut twists, though. This isn't just a lab. This is a nest. I find an abandoned, half-collapsed shack on the edge of town, barely more than splintered wood and loose stones, to serve as my operating base. Each day I shadow the villagers, noting their unsettling routines, their strange, shared silences. At night, I creep up the mountain through the gnarled trees, observing the lab compound in detail. I map security rotations, identify potential entry points, and listen for anything that might shed light on Kalen's operations. One evening, through a high, grimy window, I witness a large, unfeeling guard drag a crying woman into the lab. She is bound, limping badly, and her cries are not of pain, but a deep, primal fear, a sound that resonates with a disturbing echo in my own skull. What inhuman experiments is Kalen subjecting these poor villagers to? It makes my blood run cold, but I must stick to the mission plan. Stop Kalen, secure his research, and destroy the lab. Justice would be done here for this woman and for all the others. As the days crawl by, I notice more and more villagers exhibiting bizarre, unsettling behavior. Not violent outbursts, not seizures, but something far more chilling. A shared, vacant stare, an unblinking gaze that sees through you, not at you. Their movements become even more synchronized, their voices, when they speak, devoid of individual inflection, sometimes even harmonizing in low, disquieting hums. Some seem almost possessed by a singular, alien intent. At night, I can hear piercing, elongated shrieks echoing from the direction of the lab, not cries of agony, but something more like a collective release, a mind tearing itself open to join a larger whole. Kalen is sadistically dissolving these people, not just using them as human guinea pigs, but dismantling their very consciousness. My surveillance leaves no doubt now. This village lab is running brutal human trials, transforming individuals into something else entirely. And I have to get inside now to find out why and to stop him. I am the Veil's only hope to expose Kalen's operation and shut it down for good. Delay risks countless lives, not just physically, but spiritually. If he deploys his chorus, if it spreads, the world will not merely be infected. It will be unified in a way no human was ever meant to be. It is time to infiltrate the lab. I spend that day resting in preparation, cleaning my gear, sharpening my knives, running through entry tactics in my mind, visualizing every step, every contingency. Come nightfall, I will make my move. Kalen's evil work ends now. The next night, under a sky choked with heavy clouds, I make my move to infiltrate the lab. I wait until the moon sinks below the ridge, cloaking the valley in absolute darkness. Donning my Veil-issued night vision goggles, I creep downhill through the ancient, gnarled trees, toward the faint, sickly glowing lights of the compound. The lab is surrounded by a formidable chain-link fence, topped with glinting barbed wire, but my weeks of surveillance paid off. I discovered a section behind the back well that is unmonitored, shielded from the rotating security camera sweeps. I clip through the fence links with precise, silent movements of bolt cutters, the snips barely audible above the rustling leaves, and slink onto the grounds, melting into the deepest shadows. Up ahead, 2 guards with rifles patrol the front entrance, their movements oddly precise, almost robotic, while more men periodically circle the perimeter. I avoid their sweeps with practiced ease, a ghost in the night, and approach a side door. The electronic keypad gives me momentary pause before I pull out a disk scrambler device, its small LED screen glowing faintly, to hack into the system. A few anxious minutes later, the faint click of the latch echoes in the pre-dawn stillness. I am inside. The fluorescent-lit hallway is sterile, cold, and eerily empty. It seems most of the staff have left for the day, or perhaps for the night's more unconventional work. Moving swiftly, silently down the corridor, I scan for lab rooms, security checkpoints, anything that might give me a lead. Turning a corner, I spot a reinforced door, ominously marked Authorized Personnel Only Cognitive Resonance Lab. Worth investigating. I examine the card reader lock. This will require an ID badge to open. A quick search of nearby, surprisingly tidy offices yields a badge, carelessly left on a scientist's desk. Dr. Lyra Petrova. Hopefully it provides sufficient access. I hold my breath, the scent of antiseptic and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet, filling my nostrils, and swipe the card. The reader blinks green. The latch audibly retracts, and the heavy door unlatches. Inside is a sprawling research lab, bathed in the same harsh fluorescent light, with rows of tables holding an array of equipment, microscopes, centrifuges, incubators, all humming with a low, unnatural thrum. The back wall is lined with large, frosted glass chambers, filled with viscous, bubbling fluids, glowing test tubes, and active cell cultures that seem to pulse with a faint, internal light. One section contains an array of unusual machines. I can't immediately identify complex neural interface rigs, energy emitters, and something that looks like a massive, enclosed sensory deprivation tank. This has to be Kalen's main chorus development lab. I slip inside, my boots silent on the tiled floor, and begin photographing everything. Research notes, complex formula diagrams, hard drives. Anything that could provide insight into Kalen's activities, his monstrous vision. In one testing log, the results mentioned cognitive synchronization levels and collective consciousness emergence. The chilling terms send a fresh wave of dread through me. In an adjacent room, marked Clinical Trials Cognitive Integration, I am horrified to find hospital beds with humans strapped down, muttering incoherently, violently shaking and twitching against their restraints, their bodies writhing, but their faces strangely serene, a shared vacant focus in their eyes. They seem almost consumed. On a nearby chart are photos of the same individuals, looking healthy and normal during the pre-exposure assessment. Kalen is using these innocent villagers as lab rats, injecting them with his experimental chorus, not to kill them, but to absorb them, to study the effects of their minds dissolving and merging. It is appalling, a violation beyond any physical torture. I have to put a stop to it immediately. Just then I hear voices approaching down the hall, guards, making their nightly rounds. I quickly look for somewhere to hide and slip under a reinforced metal desk, just as 2 men, speaking in low, guttural Russian, enter the main lab. "Have they found the American spy yet?" one asks, his voice surprisingly calm. The other replies, "No, but security is on high alert. Director Kalen says he won't get far. He felt a disturbance in the collective, a discordant note." My blood runs cold. Kalen sensed me. My presence had been detected not by a camera or a tripwire, but by the very thing I came to destroy. I would need to work fast. As soon as the guards exit the main lab, their synchronized footsteps fading down the corridor, I relocate to the office where I found the lab notes on the chorus. This complex chemical formula, coupled with the cognitive integration data, could help Vale scientists devise a countermeasure, perhaps even an unmerging agent. I photograph every page with my data slate, the information burning itself into my memory before stashing the file in my pack. It is time to slip away undetected with the intel I'd acquired, but exiting will be tougher with the perimeter on high alert and Kaelin's terrifying psychic awareness. As I cautiously exit the lab toward the rear fire door, the hallway suddenly fills with blinding light, and an ear-splitting siren wails, "Intruder alert! Intruder alert!" I had tripped a silent alarm, a pressure plate perhaps, or a subtle neural tripwire that Kaelin had integrated into the facility's very energy signature. Shouts in Russian echo from all around as guards charge toward my location. No more need for stealth. I sprint headlong down the corridors, retracing my route, my boots pounding on the sterile floor. Bursting outside, I am met by blinding spotlights and alarms blaring from every structure. My only escape is the way I'd come in, through that jagged hole in the fence. Rifle shots ring out, bullets peppering the ground around my feet as I weave desperately between buildings, making for the perimeter. The exit is so close, just across the open yard. I push my muscles to their absolute limit, my lungs burning, the promise of freedom a searing fire in my veins. A searing pain stabs through my left shoulder. I had taken a hit, a glancing blow, but there is no turning back now. I dive through the torn fence opening, the ragged edges tearing at my clothes, and vanish into the concealing embrace of the night. The data, the analysis of the chorus, the horrific images of Kaelin's patients, all secured safely in my pack. Behind me, the lab guards shout furiously into the darkness. But the hunt, for now, is just beginning with the whole village on high alert, the invisible tendrils of Kaelin's collective awareness seemingly reaching everywhere. I couldn't risk staying in town. I retreated to the thick forests on the outskirts, taking shelter in an abandoned, crumbling cottage I discovered weeks earlier, half collapsed among the ancient trees and dense overgrowth. It wasn't much, just a single room with a leaky roof and broken windows, but it would provide cover while I recovered and planned my next moves. From the cottage attic, a precarious perch offering a limited view, I maintained surveillance on the lab compound using my compact Veil binoculars. The activity there was frenzied in the aftermath of my break-in. Patrols had tripled, and powerful floodlights now illuminated the grounds at night, cutting through the omnipresent fog like searching fingers. Through the distant windows of the main lab, I could occasionally see Kaelin, a furious, almost manic energy radiating from him, even at this distance. He seemed to be barking orders, his neck in a brace, no doubt from the bullet that barely missed during my escape. He was clearly rattled, but unfortunately, still very much operational. His chorus research was rapidly progressing, the chilling hum of the collective consciousness in the village growing subtly stronger. Each passing day felt like a ticking clock. I had to stop him soon, before he could distribute this deadly psionic contagion. I took stock of my meager resources. My weapons, gear, and, most importantly, the stolen intel were intact. But I was exhausted, bruised, and bloody from the desperate retreat through the unforgiving woods, and I still had a bullet lodged painfully in my left shoulder. Using the limited first aid supplies from my pack, I managed to disinfect and tightly bandage the wound to stop further blood loss. The pain was an intense, throbbing fire, a constant reminder of my vulnerability. I dug out the misshapen bullet, using a hunting knife I sterilized with a generous swig of cheap, fiery whiskey from my flask. The procedure left me lightheaded and weak, but the internal shrapnel hindering my mobility was gone. I rested as much as I could, drifting in and out of a fitful sleep while trying to formulate a plan. My break-in had alerted Kaelin to my presence, but it hadn't significantly derailed his operation. If anything, it had only accelerated his timetable. I needed to neutralize him for good, as well as any existing chorus samples, lab equipment, and remaining research. But in my current condition, with limited arm strength and this entire valley on high alert, Kaelin's collective awareness a pervasive, unseen presence, a direct assault would be suicide. My only hope was calling in a heavily armed Vale cleanup crew to level the lab and secure what could be secured of the research. However, my only form of communication was an encrypted satellite watch, disguised to look like a regular timepiece. It had an extremely limited battery charge, and I had to be outside with a clear view of the sky to get a signal, exposed to Kalen's psychic net. I would have one shot at contacting headquarters when conditions allowed. I spent the next week hiding in the dilapidated cottage, a ghost in the haunted woods, recovering my strength as I watched the lab activity, the strange, coordinated movements of the villagers becoming more pronounced, their hums more resonant. Patrols through the woods meant I could only move at night, scavenging for scraps of food from deserted farmhouses, avoiding detection. The pressure of Kalen's collective consciousness in the village was like a faint, insistent whisper at the edge of my own thoughts, a chilling echo. One evening, I awoke to the sound of heavy rain pounding the cottage roof, a drumming crescendo that vibrated through the very timbers. Going outside, I saw that a colossal thunderstorm had moved into the valley, unleashing its full fury on the mountainside. Deafening thunderclaps shook the ground, vibrating through my chest, while lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the trees in stark, blinding flashes like a strobe light. This intense storm was the cover I'd been waiting for. The electromagnetic energy could boost my watch's transmission strength for a clear signal, cutting through Kalen's psychic static. Under the thunder's roar, the sound of my encrypted call would be muted to any close listeners, and the stormy darkness provided natural concealment. I had to try now stripping off the watch's camouflage band. I extended the mini satellite antenna and input the coded message for Director Volkov. Kalen Chorus Lab located. Mission compromised. Require immediate armed backup. Cleanup and containment are essential. Send coordinates. With the tap of a button, my plea was transmitted, a silent cry into the chaotic storm. Now, it was just a matter of surviving until help arrived. I didn't know how long that would take, or if the message even went through, if Kalen's pervasive presence hadn't already jammed it. But I had done all I could. I laid low in the ruins over the next week, evading Kalen's search teams and the growing sense of their collective awareness, surviving off whatever scraps I could pilfer from the silent, ghost-like village at night. Each day I checked my watch hopefully for any response light, but only silence greeted me. Just as I was losing faith, despair a cold knot in my gut, 8 days later, a single, tiny red blink lit up the watch face. I had a coded response from headquarters. Backup dispatched, delayed due to security, arrival in 48 hours, maintain position, Vale command. I sighed with a profound, bone-deep relief. Help was coming. I just needed to keep my wits and avoid capture or death for 2 more days. A week had passed with no response. My food was running out, and Kalen's men, and the subtly shifting, watchful, infected villagers, were searching everywhere for me. Just when I thought my rescue request had failed to transmit, a tiny red light blinked on my watch. I had an incoming coded message. It was from Volkov back at Vale Command. Backup on approach. Delayed by systemic psychic interference. Expect arrival in 36 hours. Hold fast. Your sacrifice will be honored. Relief washed over me. Psychic interference. It confirmed Kalen's insidious reach. With help coming, I only needed to lay low a bit longer. Once my fellow Vale agents arrived, we would shut down Kalen and his chorus program for good. I was tired, hungry, and filthy after weeks of living like a sewer rat, but none of that would matter once the mission was complete. For now, I just had to avoid capture or death for 2 more days. Easier said than done, considering I was being hunted in a hostile village, by a madman who could feel my presence, a village filled with his terrifying, unified victims. But I was a highly trained agent of the Vale. I would persevere and finish this critical mission. The next 36 hours would decide the fate of thousands, if not millions, of lives. I pushed any fears aside. Failure was not an option. I would do my job, no matter the cost. After surviving nearly 2 weeks alone in the hostile valley, with Kalen's subtle psychic hum a constant pressure behind my eyes. I awoke in my hideout to distant snaps and rustles outside. I feared Kalen's unnervingly coordinated men, or worse, his infected chorus, had finally hunted me down. Grabbing my pistol, I slowly peered out the cracked window, my heart hammering against my ribs. But instead of soldiers or vacant-eyed villagers, I saw 4 camouflaged figures stealthily approaching, heavily armed with Veil-issue tactical rifles and gear. The cavalry had arrived. I cracked open the door and called out softly, using the prearranged recognition code, Blue J. The lead agent responded instantly, Oracle, the correct code phrase. After confirming their credentials, I hurried them inside. Commander Thorne, Agents Jax, Sierra, and Rook, reporting for duty, sir, the lead man, Jax, said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble, handing me a sealed, encrypted envelope from Veil Command. One hell of a trip getting here quietly, Commander. Felt like trying to think through a static-filled dream, but wouldn't miss the party. I quickly briefed them on the situation, the grim details of Kalen's chorus, the horror of his experiments, the pervasive, unifying consciousness now present in the villagers. Kalen has developed a potent psionic contagion, the chorus, capable of mass mind-merging, not control. He's tested it on the villagers here with devastating results. They're not just violent, they're a unified, malevolent entity. I showed them my data slate photos of the human experiments, the vacant, yet somehow intelligent, eyes of his victims, and the chilling formula notes. They shook their heads, their faces grim, at the barbarity agent Rook. A quiet, intensely focused woman spoke up, her voice a low murmur. This has gone way beyond intelligence gathering, Commander. We need to raid the lab in force and take Kalen down. Capture if possible, but neutralization if he resists. No containment or cleanup for the immediate threat. We purge this horror from the source. Jax nodded, checking his rifle's action. Agreed. This situation is out of control. That pathogen cannot leave this valley. It's too dangerous to simply contain. It needs to be eradicated. I pointed to the lab on a hastily sketched map. Kalen has tripled security since my break-in. Getting inside will be difficult, but speed is critical. He anticipates our moves, feels our presence. His collective is expanding. Sierra, a sharp-eyed operative known for her tactical precision, added, Veil Command wants Kalen alive if possible for interrogation, Commander. His knowledge is invaluable for countermeasure development. But once we're inside, all bets are off. We do whatever it takes to stop this threat here and now. Understood. Understood, I replied, my voice firm. Kalen poses a grave danger to global sanity. He has to be neutralized or captured before he perfects this nightmare. Rook chimed in. We'll follow your lead on the operation plan, Commander. You know the site and the villagers. This ends tonight one way or another. I checked my gear one last time, the weight of the pistol in my hand familiar, reassuring. Okay, gentleman and lady, we move out in 20 minutes. Check weapons, prepare for anything. Once we breach the lab, Kalen will not go quietly. And his chorus, they're more dangerous than any conventional force. Jax racked his shotgun with a grim smile. Roger that, Commander. We'll be ready with plenty of persuasion. The team set about preparing for the assault, their movements practiced, professional. We had one shot at this. Failure risked unleashing an unstoppable, insidious plague upon the world, a cognitive apocalypse. Either Kalen would be brought to justice tonight, or his lab would burn. There was no other option. That night, we approached the lab under cover of profound darkness, the pervasive fog a welcome shroud. I led the team to the weakened section of fence I had used previously, its jagged edges still a testament to my desperate escape. We slipped through like phantoms and stealthily neutralized 2 roving perimeter guards with silenced pistols, their forms slumping to the ground without a sound, their eyes wide, but strangely still. So far, so good. The pervasive hum of Kalen's collective awareness seemed to intensify as we drew closer, a low thrumming behind my own eyes, a feeling of being watched by 1,000 unblinking gazes. I led the squad down a side corridor toward the research wing. We encountered 2 patrolling guards along the way, their movements too synchronized, too precise. They were quickly subdued, their lives extinguished before they could raise an alarm. Agent Rook stood watch over their unconscious bodies. "No going back now," she said grimly, her voice barely a whisper. At the lab entrance, I swiped the stolen key card. The door clicked open with a soft thud. Inside, the team swiftly fanned out to secure the room. The lab appeared deserted at this late hour, no signs of life, only the cold hum of machinery. "Clear," reported Agent Jax, sweeping his rifle around. "Okay, let's move quickly," I said. "Download anything that looks useful. We need data for the countermeasures." We inserted flash drives and began copying data from the computer's research logs, formula files, equipment diagrams. Anything related to Kaelin's chorus development. Meanwhile, Agent Sierra called out from an adjacent room. "In here, Commander. You need to see this." We joined Sierra and were horrified by what we saw on a bank of monitors. Video files playing on a loop, showing human test subjects strapped down and exposed to Kaelin's psionic chorus. The victims thrashed against their restraints, their minds violently dissolving, their bodies twitching, but their faces slowly contorting into a shared, placid serenity. The screams weren't of pain, but a high-pitched, harmonic chorus, a merging of individual consciousnesses. "My God," muttered Jax, his voice hoarse, "he's dissolving them. Not just physically, but what the hell is this?" He looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. "He's tested this on his own villagers like lab rats. They're becoming one, a single entity." The rest of us stood in stunned silence, shaken by the gruesome experiments, by the sheer, unholy violation of Kaelin's work. "This ends tonight," declared Sierra, ejecting the drive containing the horrifying videos. "We purge this whole nightmare." In Kaelin's personal office, located behind a reinforced blast door that Rook skillfully breached, we uncovered more research, more chilling documentation. It clearly laid out the true scale of his plans. He sought to develop aerosol delivery methods, to create a global chorus network, with which he could turn entire populations into a single, unified, programmable consciousness. "This is worse than we thought," I said, my voice tight. "He's not creating a weapon, he's creating a new form of existence, and he intends to force it on humanity." Jax's expression was grave. "Agreed. Our orders are clear. Kaelin does not leave this facility alive if he resists capture. His knowledge is too dangerous." Just then, alarms blared, a piercing shriek that cut through the silence, and lights flashed erratically. Our presence had been detected. "They know we're here. Move out," shouted Jax. Instead of retreating, we decided to push forward into the facility, deeper into Kaelin's domain, toward his personal quarters to find him. As we advanced, heavy footfalls approached, guards rushing to intercept us. We took up positions in the hallway, using the corridor corner as cover. As the guards showed themselves, moving with that unsettling, synchronized grace, we unleashed controlled bursts from our rifles, dropping them before they could effectively return fire. They had numbers, but we had experience, training, and the tactical advantage of surprise. We leapfrogged down the hall in this manner, leaving a trail of silent bodies. "Rook, Sierra, take point," I ordered as we approached Kaelin's secure wing, the source of the persistent psychic hum. Using breaching charges, Jax blew open the fortified entrance. The blast echoed through the underground facility. We quickly neutralized 2 more guards inside, their bodies convulsing, not just from the impact, but from something else, something Kaelin had done to them. Alarms continued blaring, but no other defenders immediately presented themselves. We entered the main chorus development lab, housed behind armored glass. "Burn it all," said Jax, his voice grim. Rook and Sierra opened fire with incendiary rounds, shattering the glass and igniting the lab equipment and rows of volatile chemicals. Flames erupted around us, fed by the volatile substances, as we continued toward Kaelin's inner sanctum. Inside his heavily fortified office, We seized all remaining documentation and data storage related to his schemes, stuffing them into hardened data pouches. Before rigging the room to explode, we prepared to make our escape. A chilling, melodic clang sounded, and a voice, amplified to a menacing bellow, came over the intercom system. "You will not leave here alive, you primitive, discordant fools. I will burn your minds as you have burned my work." It was Kalen, his voice strained, clearly unhinged by our raid, but still radiating a terrifying certainty, a fanatical conviction. Just then, one of the office walls burst open with a shower of plaster and sparks as a crazed, horrifying figure charged into the room. It was one of the test villagers, transformed into a homicidal monster by Kalen's chorus. Its eyes were bloodshot and wild, devoid of individual reason, yet unified with a collective malice. It bellowed, a sound that was less roar and more a discordant wail of many voices, and attacked us with superhuman speed and strength, shattering lab equipment, shrugging off rifle shots. We narrowly ducked the deranged man's attack long enough for Jax to grab a heavy fire extinguisher and crush his skull with a sickening thud. "Everyone okay?" I shouted, my voice cutting through the rising heat. We took stock of our situation quickly. "Kalen's unleashed his human weapons against us now," said Rook, reloading her weapon with practiced ease. "We need to get out of here," I nodded. "Copy that. Move. Escape is now our only priority." We fought our way through smoke-filled corridors, illuminated by the growing blaze, the roar of the flames beginning to drown out our gunshots as we cut down the guards rushing to stop us. Kalen's rage-filled voice continued taunting us over the facility's PA system amidst the chaos. "You cannot stop my glorious revolution. Your minds will be the first to burn. Join us. Become one." We blocked out his ranting, focusing on making it outside in one piece. The exit was just ahead, past the containment rooms. Bursting through the steel doors outside, we found ourselves surrounded on all sides by a large crowd of infected villagers, at least 30 or more. They were deranged, their eyes wild and bloodshot, fixed on us with a terrifying shared focus. They growled and shrieked at us, a discordant chorus of unified rage. The chorus had destroyed their free will, turning them into mindless puppets driven by uncontrolled savagery. But unified, moving as one, their movements unnervingly synchronized. They began advancing aggressively, holding weapons and tools, agricultural implements, blunt clubs, even broken glass shards in a threatening, coordinated manner. "Stay together. Don't let them isolate us," shouted Jax, firing a controlled burst into the advancing mob. The infected villagers moved with unnatural speed and reckless abandon as we fired bursts into their midst to keep them back. Our shots found their marks but barely slowed their advance, as they felt no pain or fear, only the psychotic rage induced by Kalen's chorus. We had to get past them to the fence somehow. Making a break toward the torn section I had used previously, we shot our way through the infected mob while they clawed and swung wildly at us, their movements disturbingly coordinated. Sierra took a rake to the back, but kept moving with our support. I looked into their diseased eyes as we cut them down and saw no glimmer of recognition or humanity left in these people I had lived among for weeks. Friends, even family members, were now reduced to vicious, unified monsters by Kalen's chorus. Still, escape was our only option. "Don't stop firing," I yelled as we retreated in bounds toward the fence under continuous fire. A final group of infected villagers pursued us closely in a frenzy. Rook and Jax turned and laid down suppressing fire to halt their advance as we reached the torn fence line. We dove through the opening and immediately took up defensive positions to cover the team's full escape. The constant rifle shots kept the crazed horde at bay long enough for all of us to slip outside the compound perimeter into the open field beyond. From there, we quickly disappeared under the pale moonlight into the thick forest tree line for shelter, having successfully completed our mission. Behind us, the facility burned brightly, a roaring inferno illuminating the night sky, its orange flames licking at the low clouds. The lab was fully ablaze, and Kalen's core research was destroyed, but his voice still echoed from the compound loudspeakers amidst the raging flames, a distorted, mocking prophecy. You have only prolonged the inevitable. We will find you. The chorus will find you all. We retreated through the dark woods to a small, isolated hunting cabin I had discovered weeks earlier as a potential shelter. It was only a mile from the lab perimeter, but seemed far enough to lie low for now. Once safely inside the musty, single-room structure, we quickly caught our breath and took stock. Miraculously, despite some injuries, we had all made it out in one piece. I gave Jax the satellite comms device to radio Vale Command for extraction. Meanwhile, the rest of us assessed our situation. The core mission was accomplished. All data and physical samples related to Kalen's chorus were destroyed beyond recovery in the lab fire. But Kalen himself had escaped, and he remained an extremely dangerous threat given his intimate knowledge of the chorus's molecular makeup and cognitive effects. Even with his lab destroyed, his scientific skills and his insidious ideology made him incredibly dangerous if allowed to roam. Free Jax got off the radio with Vale Command. Extraction is not possible until nightfall tomorrow, he reported, his voice tired. They're citing extreme localized psychic interference, environmental distortion. We need to dig in here until they can send a chopper under cover of darkness. I nodded, having expected this. Kalen's influence was far-reaching. We should be safe here for now. I'll take the first watch. The exhausted team found places to catch a few hours of uneasy sleep. When morning came, the low hum of the village, a subtle psychic resonance, felt closer than ever, a constant pressure behind my eyes. I briefly woke Jax for a status update. We agreed simply to remain hidden in the cabin all day. No one rested easy, constantly listening for any sounds of approaching trouble. The chilling whisper of the chorus at the edge of our perception around midday. Rook voiced what everyone was thinking, her eyes distant. This mission isn't over, not by a long shot. Kalen still has that formula in his head, that ideology. If he gets to the right people, this threat goes global. The chorus, it spreads too easily. I tried reassuring him. Kalen lost his lab, his data, samples, everything. That sets him back years. Without resources, he poses much less of a danger now. But Jax cut in, his voice grim. Doesn't matter, Commander. Vale Command wants Kalen eliminated ASAP. He's too great a liability otherwise. Alive, if possible, for interrogation, but if it comes to it, termination. I knew Jax was right. Kalen would stop at nothing to exact revenge on us and rebuild his operation. And he had loyal mercenaries, still embedded throughout the region, still subtly influenced by his spreading consciousness. We needed to end this threat for good. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in a bruised purple, we did final weapons checks and prepared for the next confrontation. The helicopter would be here in an hour. Then we'd hunt Kalen down and finish this once, and for all we decided to capture some of Kalen's guards alive for interrogation, instead of eliminating them all. We needed intel on his current location and plans. Under cover of darkness, Jax and Rook stealthily abducted 2 patrolling guards near the lab's smoldering ruins. We snuck up behind them and simultaneously gagged them so they couldn't call for help or make any noise. Make any noise and you die, Jax hissed at them, his voice low and dangerous. We quickly bound the guards' hands and dragged them to a secure secondary location. The basement of a derelict building outside town, a place that offered total privacy for the interrogations. Inside the musty basement, lit only by our flashlights, we roughly tied the defiant guards to chairs. They glared at us silently, refusing to talk. Sierra, our interrogator, brandished a large, wicked-looking knife. We can do this the easy way or the fun way, your choice. She slowly dragged the knife tip down one guard's cheek, just breaking the skin. The guard's face turned pale. Now, tell us what we want to know and this ends quickly, Sierra growled, her voice like ice. The guards stayed stubbornly silent, but the subtle tremor in their hands betrayed their fear. So Sierra described in vivid, gruesome detail how we would slowly torture them for information, not just physically, but psychologically, using some of Vale's more persuasive techniques. The mental imagery did the trick. Fearing prolonged agony and death, both guards quickly agreed to cooperate fully. I showed them photos of Kalen. "Where did he go after the lab raid?" one guard nervously responded, his voice trembling. "I don't know exactly. He has many hiding places, but probably the catacombs under the old chapel, secret tunnels built long ago, easy to disappear there." This lined up with our suspicions. A maze of crypts would allow Kalen to move undetected, even with his pervasive collective awareness. "What's Kalen doing down there? Is he planning to escape the country?" I pressed. "He is angry, half mad," the other guard added, his eyes darting. "They say after the attack he is not scared into hiding far away. He is recruiting more of us, getting weapons. He wants revenge. He wants to expand the chorus." "I heard them say," the first guard interjected, "if the situation becomes worse, they take Kalen out by sea to a new lab in another land. But not yet. He wants you all dead first. He wants to bring you into the chorus." This sense of Kalen's mindset was valuable, though troubling. A cornered enemy, especially one with a shared consciousness, was even more dangerous. We might not get another shot at him. Sierra drew the knife lightly across a guard's neck again, a silent threat. "Anything else useful you remember? Now's the time." They rapidly shook their heads, pleading that they had told us everything. We had learned valuable intelligence, but kept the guards detained in case we needed more information. Their interrogations gave us a clearer picture of Kalen's movements and intentions after the lab's destruction. It also lent urgency to capturing him quickly before he could flee the region and disappear into obscurity abroad, taking his monstrous knowledge with him. This vital context from the guards allowed us to plan our next moves more strategically. We now knew Kalen was laying low in the ancient catacombs beneath the chapel, buying time to rebuild his forces and resources. We had to strike swiftly before he could unleash his deadly knowledge on the world again from the shadows. The comms buzzed with new instructions from Vale Command. "Team Bravo, this is Command. Do you copy?" "Solid copy, Command," responded Jax, his voice crisp. "Be advised, your orders have changed," the voice on the radio replied. "Kalen must be taken alive, if possible, for interrogation. His knowledge is invaluable for countermeasure development. However, Commander Thorne's previous reports indicate a pervasive psychic influence from the target. Prioritize your team's mental integrity. Avoid direct psychic contact if possible. Use veil dampeners at all times." Jax acknowledged the order change, his brow furrowed. "Affirmative, Command, but capturing him risks casualties. Request clarification on force parameters." The voice on the radio replied, "Avoid detection and collateral damage as much as feasible, but Kalen's capture is now mission critical. You have full discretion on methods, Commander." We discussed options for taking Kalen into custody without getting ourselves killed in the process. Even with surprise and superior training, it would be extremely difficult given the close quarters of the catacombs and his loyal mercenaries, now enhanced by the chorus. Based on interrogations of captured guards, Vale Intel updated us that Kalen had likely retreated from the burning lab into ancient catacombs constructed beneath the village chapel centuries ago. A maze of crypts and tunnels allowed him to move undetected as he regrouped his forces. Trying to find Kalen down there would be like searching every cave in Afghanistan, argued Jax, shaking his head. We'd be sitting ducks wandering those tunnels blindly, especially with that psychic noise. "But we have our orders," Sierra countered. "We'll set up close surveillance on the chapel. At some point, Kalen will have to surface. That's when we grab him." A tenuous plan at best, but the only one that preserved our tactical advantage. We were also given code phrases to covertly identify ourselves as Vale agents to any friendly Special Forces units in the area that might assist in the hunt for Kalen, though their involvement had to avoid detection for now. Keeping Kalen's chorus capabilities secret remained critical. Once the extraction chopper arrived, just after midnight, we headed out under cover of darkness toward the chapel location, my nerves burning with tension, the distant hum of the chorus in the village a constant, low thrum in my mind. Under the deepest shadow of night, we approached the old village chapel, where intel indicated Kalen had taken refuge. A perimeter of mercenaries, their forms unnaturally rigid, guarded the grounds, but we neutralized them swiftly using silenced pistols and knives, their bodies slumping without a sound. Soon, we were descending the crumbling stone steps into the ancient catacombs constructed beneath the chapel centuries ago. Dank, subterranean air, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, rushed to meet us as we switched on our veil-issue flashlights, illuminating the tunnels ahead in an eerie green hue. Our boots splashed through inches of stagnant water as we pressed forward, the cold seeping into my bones. The maze of crypts and winding passages stretched for unknown miles in all directions. We had to be methodical in our search. Kalen could be hiding anywhere in this labyrinth, his consciousness expanding into the very stone. "Keep your eyes peeled for any signs of activity or recent passage," I whispered, my voice barely audible in the oppressive silence. "And be prepared for booby traps. He knows we're coming." We investigated one crypt after another, finding only ancient corpses and artifacts from ages past. The deeper we explored, the heavier the silence felt, pressing in from all sides, amplifying the strange hum that vibrated through my skull. After 2 hours of painstaking, silent searching, Rook, our point man, noticed scuff marks and fresh footprints in one of the tunnels leading deeper. "Someone's been through here recently," she whispered, her voice tight. I nodded. "Let's see where they lead." Soon, we discovered more indications of regular traffic, discarded ration tins, still smoldering torch sconces, thick cables running along the rock walls, feeding unseen power. We were on the right path. "He can't be far now," Jax muttered, gripping his weapon tighter. The trail kept angling downward, into older and more primitive passages, and pieces of modern equipment like portable lights and strange, resonant emitters appeared more frequently. "Stay tight, watch your sectors," I said. The rocky tunnels provided perfect positions for ambush. Kalen clearly knew we were coming. A faint hum, different from the ambient psychic static, finally reached our ears from up ahead. Voices, machinery, movement. The wide tunnel opened into a large cavern, creating a natural bunker. Inside, a high-tech command center had been erected, complete with flickering security cameras, complex computers, and weapon stations. We took cover behind massive stone pillars, observing for a moment. "There's our rat," Sierra said, pointing to a figure yelling orders at a screen, his back to us. Kalen. This was his subsurface base of operations. We were ready to move in when a deafening blast shook the entire chamber. A section of the tunnel behind us collapsed, cutting off our backup route. Kalen had detonated timed charges. His voice, amplified by hidden speakers in the cavern, echoed through the space, now devoid of any pretense of sanity. "Your pursuit ends here, fools. The chorus will consume you." Guards suddenly appeared, their eyes glazed, their movements unnervingly synchronized, raining gunfire down on our position. Outgunned for the moment, we had to retreat further into the cavern complex as bullets ricocheted around us. Kalen was making an escape under the cover of his men. "Jax, Sierra, suppressing fire," I ordered. "Rook, with me. We can't lose Kalen." We broke from cover, darting through the subterranean battlefield toward the far tunnel where Kalen had fled. The gunfire was deafening in the confined space. We dove and returned fire when possible, but had to keep Kalen in our sights. Up ahead, his silhouette disappeared into the darkness of an unexplored tunnel. With Jax and Sierra on our heels, we gave chase. The passages twisted erratically, but we followed smears of blood and dragging footprints left by the wounded scientist. "He's desperate, bleeding," I said, a strange resonance in my own voice, as if his desperation was bleeding into my mind. "We've almost got him." Rook was more cautious, her face grim. Desperate men are dangerous men, Commander. Stay focused. The trail ended abruptly at a rusted ladder leading up to a storm drain cover, Kalen's escape route. We emerged cautiously into the forest, the cool night air a sudden shock, just in time to see a camouflaged truck speeding away into the night, carrying our target. No, we had him, I shouted in frustration, coming all this way only to watch him slip away at the last second. I knew we might not get another chance, but Rook calmed me down, her voice steady. We forced him to abandon his main base of operations, Commander. That's a major blow. He's not out of the fight, but this mistake will cost him dearly. His collective is fractured now. We can feel it. I realized Rook was right. We had dealt Kalen a serious setback tonight. It wasn't a total victory, but the war was far from over. We would keep pursuing and find him again. With this operation compromised, his immediate plans derailed, he was on his heels now. It was only a matter of time. Our team entered the dense jungle at first light, tracking Kalen before he could establish himself somewhere secret and potentially unleash his deadly chorus virus globally. The vegetation was sweltering and oppressive. Humidity hung thick in the air, beating on our skin and gear. Our machetes swung rhythmically to cut a winding path through massive ferns, suffocating vines, and hanging roots as we advanced. The limited visibility and cramped environment left us vulnerable to ambush, so we remained hypervigilant for any signs of traps, tripwires, disturbed earth, or other activity among the foliage. We knew Kalen had extensive experience in these lands, and his psychological warfare was already apparent. The advantage was his. We also had to constantly be alert for infected wildlife or villagers. The chorus Kalen developed could spread rapidly through blood and saliva contact, turning even small creatures primal, aggressive, and part of the unified entity. As we came across empty villages, ransacked huts with blood-spattered walls, it made it clear they had already been overrun by the madness. No humans left alive, just remnants of the horror brought by Kalen's chorus. The psychic hum, for me, was a constant, low thrum growing louder with each passing mile, a shared, pervasive thought that wasn't my own on the second day. Rook, our point man, halted abruptly as she examined some broken branches and disturbed soil. She silently signaled for us to stop and take cover. These tracks seem intentionally left to manipulate our route, she whispered, her voice tight. Kalen's trying to hurt us somewhere. He's testing our resolve. I nodded grimly. He knows we're coming for him. Stay sharp for traps or ambushes. This is a game to him. We proceeded more cautiously, but sure enough, continuing to follow the conspicuous trail of bootprints and broken foliage, eventually led us straight into a camouflaged pit trap lined with sharpened bamboo spikes. We sensed the trap just in time, the subtle shift in the psychic resonance, and avoided falling in, but it confirmed our suspicion. Kalen was employing psychological games to slow our pursuit and inflict casualties. He knew we would do everything we could to track him. Jack spat on the ground, his face grim. He's toying with us, letting us know he's in control out here. Mind games don't decide outcomes, Jax. Actions do, I replied, my voice hard. We stick to our training and finish this mission. Kalen's not thinking clearly right now. He's arrogant. We can use that. From then on, we took even greater care to spot signs of deception or ambush along the trail. The intermittent bootprints, fabric scraps, and broken branches were clearly intended to steer our route into specific, deadly traps. We could not afford to let our guard down out here, not even for a moment. Kalen knew the terrain and our tactics intimately, and would exploit any lapse in focus. We had to remain alert and be smarter than his tricks if we hoped to apprehend him. The element of surprise would be key. After a week of careful pursuit, the trail ended abruptly. "We've lost him," Sierra exclaimed in frustration, her voice raw. Our leads had run dry deep in the untamed jungle. "He can't hide from us forever out here," Jack said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Let's expand the search grid. He'll surface eventually." But days of fruitlessly combing the jungle put us increasingly on edge. Our supplies dwindled as the search dragged on with no further sign of Kalen. Doubts crept in that he had evaded us and disappeared. We couldn't afford any more delays. Kalen had to be found now, before rebuilding his operation somewhere else, before the chorus could take root elsewhere. Just when it seemed hopeless, a break came. One of the local guides, a resilient old hunter we'd established a wary rapport with, heard rumors of a concealed bunker spotted recently, about 10 clicks north. The description matched one of Kalen's suspected jungle outposts. It wasn't much, just a hushed rumor, but it was our only lead. We cautiously moved to investigate. Now we just needed to infiltrate quickly and quietly to take Kalen totally by surprise. After weeks of pursuit, today it ended. Failure was not an option under the faint moonlight. We approached the sealed bunker entrance. We had it under surveillance for over 24 hours. 2 heavily armed mercenary guards were posted outside the thick steel door. Loyal fighters contracted to protect Kalen at all costs, their minds already subtly influenced by the chorus's whispers, making them unnervingly obedient. We needed to neutralize them quickly and quietly if we hoped to infiltrate undetected. I signaled Sierra to circle west and take up a flanking position in the dense jungle foliage. I would mirror her movement to the east. Jax and Rook nodded, hanging back to provide overwatch and cover our stealthy approach. On my discreet hand signal, Sierra and I simultaneously crept forward toward the unsuspecting guards. In a lightning-fast surprise attack, we dashed the last 10 meters from the brush and slit both guards' throats before they could cry out or react. Their bodies slumped to the ground, a chilling, shared stillness in their vacant eyes, as if their individual lights had already flickered out. We dragged their bodies out of sight into the nearby undergrowth. Jax and Rook moved up to the bunker entrance, and I joined them, keying in the stolen access codes on the locking keypad. It flashed green after a moment, and the heavy steel door unsealed with a metallic clunk. We were in. Inside was a narrow passage, sloping down into the earth. One by one, we descended the steel ladder rungs into the tunnel, the stale underground air and rock walls closing in oppressively as we dropped 30 feet or more. My nerves burned with anticipation about what awaited us below, the psychic hum intensifying with each step. At the bottom, a dimly lit maze of concrete corridors opened up, lined with pipes and wiring. We switched our Veilissue night vision goggles on, bathing the cold, utilitarian hallways in an eerie green hue that amplified the tactical rifles and gear strapped to our bodies. Following the rough facility maps acquired through Veil intel sources, we silently wound our way toward the central hub. The entire base had an atmosphere of desertion and foreboding. Our strained breathing and quiet footfalls were the only sounds cutting through the stillness, besides the background mechanical hum of unseen generators. There were no signs of activity or life. No guards, no technicians, nothing. "I got a bad feeling about this," muttered Jax under his breath, his voice strained. I nodded grimly. "Where is everyone? Something doesn't feel right." We kept our rifles on hair trigger, anticipating an ambush ahead from the shadows entering the surveillance room at the heart of the facility. The mystery of the missing personnel was chillingly solved. Banks of security camera monitors showed the maze of corridors and containment chambers rapidly filling with dozens of infected villagers. The underground tunnels had funneled them straight toward our position within the base. Kalen had clearly triggered their mass release remotely, intentionally flooding his own facility with these violent human test subjects, his own twisted chorus. He knew we were here, and he was using these poor souls, turned mindless weapons, as the first line of defense. "My God, he's unleashed them," Jax uttered in horror, his voice barely a whisper. "We need to get out of here now." But any exit was already cut off. At that moment, steel blast doors around the perimeter of the surveillance hub slammed shut in sequence with echoing booms. We were sealed in seconds later, the air vents opened, and a faint, almost invisible mist began pouring throughout the corridors. One whiff, even through the filtered air of my helmet, and I instantly recognized the compound. Kaelin's experimental chorus formula, concentrated into gas form. He was exposing us to the full effects of the psychosis-inducing pathogen. The speakers in the ceiling crackled to life. Kaelin's voice echoed through them, amplified to a menacing bellow by the concrete tunnels. Did you really think I wasn't prepared for this? That I wouldn't take precautions in the event my operation was compromised from within? His tone turned mocking, taunting us. No, I've planned this contingency for quite some time, and now you will suffer a fate far worse than death. You will join us, become one with the chorus. Kaelin's deranged laughter echoed down the corridors, a chilling, multi-layered sound, mixed with distant shrieks and screams rapidly approaching from the maze of hallways around us. The infected were close, their collective awareness pressing in on my mind like a physical weight. We quickly put on our veil-issue gas masks to filter out the airborne toxin, but the masks would only last for so long, and the hordes of bloodthirsty, infected villagers, moving with unnatural coordination, roaming free in here with us, posed just as deadly a threat. Now we needed to find a way out fast, or we would become prey just like them. Kaelin clearly had all the advantages, the environment, the infected at his command, the traps and toxins he had prepared. He knew we were coming and had been waiting eagerly. This would be a fight to the death, and the odds were firmly against us surviving. On my signal, we fought as a disciplined unit, firing steady, selective bursts while moving quickly down the east corridor, the only open escape path available. As we advanced, we knifed and clubbed the endless waves of crazed, unified infected villagers that threw themselves at us. The chorus had robbed them of all reason and self-preservation. They felt no pain or fear, only violent, psychotic madness, driven by raw animal impulse to kill and destroy. They clawed, punched, and bit at us viciously as we battled through their midst, their movements shockingly precise, their attacks coordinated. But we kept our training and focus. Failure here meant a gruesome death, not just of the body, but of the mind. After what felt like hours of battling through dozens more of the infected in the maze of hallways, the constant psychic hum growing louder, pressing in on my thoughts, we finally reached a locked security door and barricaded ourselves inside. It appeared to be the communications control room. Outside in the concrete corridor, the relentless horde immediately began pounding and clawing on the reinforced metal door, their collective growl a terrifying, unified sound. Rook examined the entryway while reloading her weapon. "This door won't hold them back forever," she said grimly, pointing to the buckling steel hinges. "The enraged, unified mob would be on us again soon if we didn't act quickly." "Any way to call for backup or extract?" asked Sierra desperately, her face pale under the mask. But the comms channels were dead. Kaelin had cut off all outside contact down here. We were well and truly on our own, trapped deep in this nightmare labyrinth, swarming with maniacal, infected humans. We had no route of escape or any real way to fight our way clear against their sheer numbers. Still, giving up was not even a consideration. It was endure and overcome, or die trying. We reloaded weapons and braced our nerves for the next confrontation. Either we figured out an escape from this death trap, or we would be torn to shreds and join the chorus roaming these halls. But quitting was not who we were. Suddenly, the locking mechanism on the heavy door began turning as it slowly started to open. We spun, weapons raised, prepared to immediately fire on whatever fresh horrors entered. Then a startled voice cried, "Wait! Don't shoot!" In stumbled two uniformed lab technicians, hands raised, just as shocked to see us survivors as we were them. They must have been trapped down here during the lockdown too. "Do you know a way out of here?" I asked, my voice strained. They quickly nodded, their eyes wide with fear, and motioned for us to follow closely. With the frenzied horde fast approaching again down the corridor, their unified cries echoing, we swiftly pursued the two technicians through a maze of maintenance tunnels and accessways, dodging collapsing pipes and sparking wires. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we reached a ladder leading up to the surface. The cool night jungle air had never tasted sweeter as we emerged from the earth, gasping for breath, the oppressive hum of the chorus momentarily fading. I turned to the two technicians who aided our escape, a young woman and an older man. Is there another way back in to reach the central hub? We need to stop Dr. Kalen once and for all. The female tech replied hastily, her eyes darting nervously. Yes, I can show you a maintenance tunnel that will bypass upper-level containment, but you saw what he's unleashed down there. Going back would be suicide. He's changed them. They're not human anymore. We don't have a choice, I responded, my voice firm, my gaze unwavering. Lead the way. She reluctantly led us to a hidden side passage, obscured by thick foliage. One by one, we descended cautiously back into the earth. The air grew colder and stale again as we wound our way toward Kalen's lair, the psychic hum returning, growing stronger, more insistent. Up ahead, the sounds of shrieking and pounding reached our ears. The infected horde was still roaming these tunnels. We would need to fight through them again to reach Kalen. Switching off safeties, we steeled ourselves for combat and continued forward. Turning the corner, we opened fire into a mass of deranged, unified infected villagers, dropping them before they could react. But gunshots echoed far in these confined spaces. Soon more crazed hordes came running toward the commotion, their movements coordinated, almost fluid. Wave after wave of vicious infected attacked, impervious to pain or injury. We had to expend every round while retreating faster toward the central hub chamber. Our window was closing. They just kept coming, a relentless, unified wave. Finally, we made it through the last infected mob blocking our path and burst into the main hub room. And there was Kalen, frantically trying to escape while his recorded voice taunted us overhead, a distorted, echoing loop. You are weak-minded fools. Embrace your infection or perish. Join the chorus. Seeing us, Kalen made a desperate dash toward a hidden side door, but Jax was faster, tackling him violently to the hard concrete floor with a grunt. We surrounded Kalen, weapons aimed directly at him. The end had come for this madman and his sick ambitions. You are too late, Kalen spat defiantly, a manic grin on his bloodied face. The age of the chorus has already begun. You will all join us. I smashed my gunstock across his face, silencing further rants. He would answer for his crimes against humanity. I ordered Jax and Rook to take Kalen into custody while Sierra and I rigged explosives to collapse the complex. We had to bury this evil forever. Hustling Kalen through the corpse-strewn tunnels, his struggles against his restraints growing weaker, we detonated the charges and continued toward the surface exit. Fiery explosions tore through the underground base behind us, the ground shuddering violently. Kalen screamed and struggled against his restraints, but he was powerless now, his monstrous vision collapsing around him. We left the blazing bunker behind us, the inferno consuming all traces of Kalen's horrific schemes. Justice had been dealt this day for his countless victims. Under heavy guard, Kalen was transported to a black site facility, a place that doesn't exist on any map, to fully chronicle his research into the chorus virus for countermeasure development by Vale scientists. Any further useful knowledge to extract from him would be gained. Then, he would rot in solitary darkness for eternity, forgotten by history, his collective consciousness shattered. No mercy would be shown to one such as him. The outbreak zone village was razed and sterilized. Unable to cure the infected, their minds permanently subsumed by the chorus, we provided the only merciful release possible. A quick and painless end, finally freeing them from their uncontrolled torment. It was a graveyard now, the infected threat forever neutralized under scorched earth. I took one last look at the smoldering ruins, visible in the valley below, a black scar on the green landscape. It's been 1 year since we took down Kalen and destroyed his chorus virus for good. As I walk the streets of D.C. today, on my way to headquarters, fragments of memories from those tense days still occasionally surface at odd moments. Brief flashes of the infected villagers, their crazed, coordinated violence, and their utter lack of individual humanity. The feeling of being hunted through that remote wilderness by a brilliant yet deranged adversary, Kalen's voice echoing in my mind, the subtle psychic hum of the chorus a constant, low thrum behind my own eyes. My own doubts that we would make it out of there alive. But we persevered and succeeded, against all odds. Kalen is now locked away in a black hole prison from which he'll never emerge again. His attempts to rebuild his collective consciousness in isolation constantly monitored and suppressed. His nightmarish viral research is eradicated from existence, analyzed and contained. The threat he posed is permanently neutralized. I think often of the infected villagers, whose lives were destroyed by Kalen's insanity. We had no choice but to end the suffering his virus caused them. Their vacant, synchronized faces still haunt me some nights. If only we could have reached them sooner, before the chorus took hold. But dwelling on regrets is counterproductive in this line of work. The focus must remain on the next mission, the next threat we must confront and overcome in defense of this nation and its people, of humanity's fragile sanity. The enemies of freedom never sleep, so neither can we. The past is the past, though never forgotten. I check my secured email for updates on my next assignment and gear up to hit the field again. The mission details are still classified, shrouded in the usual veil secrecy, but I'm confident in my training and experience. Whether infiltrating a terrorist network, tracking a rogue agent, or thwarting a biological or cognitive attack, I stand ready to act to face any threat without hesitation, to do what must be done, no matter the odds. I know we won't fail when lives hang in the balance. Failure is not an option. My team enters the briefing room, their faces showing the same solemn determination I feel. We've been through hell together already, faced the unfaceable. No matter what comes next, we're prepared to follow orders and get the job done like only we can. This is what we were born to do, to walk in darkness so others don't have to. There is no turning back now, only the mission ahead. And no matter where that takes us, we move forward together with a focused purpose, ready for anything.